Hello.
Hey. Oh my gosh, it's not every day that this works the first try. Yay. How are you?
We're great. Doing good. How are you?
I'm really excited to chat with you tonight. I've been really loving your content on here, the bat facts, the myth busting. So I'm just really excited to hear about all the work that you do. So do you want to do an intro? Tell us about yourselves and the Conservancy?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Roxanne Quilty. I'm a co-founder and executive director of Gotham Bat Conservancy. My work history is in advocacy and organizing, and I recently moved into environmental advocacy and organizing, and I'm so excited to focus my energy on bat conservation.
That's awesome.
My name is Ryan, and I'm an environmental biologist, and I have been working in New York City in conservation, the field of conservation, for a few years now, and um, I'm excited to be able to focus kind of in on like an animal that I've grown very fond of and become very attached to and kind of like identify with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just really exciting to be able to like formally like launch our whole initiative and endeavor to be able to formalize like our work moving forward, which is really fun and exciting.
Definitely. So where are you starting? What's happening for you right now?
So right now we are we live in New York City, and we're focusing on the bats that are found in New York State and the Northeast and Mid Atlantic region, because like where we are situated is like right kind of on the border of those two. So there's a lot of overlap in what animals like we see. So we're focused on those species in particular, and a big focus right now for us is providing educational information and materials to the public and also into school programs and other volunteer groups to spread, the good word of how important bats are and really a focus on disseminating a lot of the misinformation that's around bat species.
That's so important and definitely needed. That is for sure. And I know you raise awareness for white nose syndrome, and I know it kind of was founded in New York. Do you want to tell our followers a little bit about white nose syndrome and kind of what's happening with that in New York right now?
Yeah. So white nose syndrome is a it's like a collection of behaviors and symptoms that are caused by a fungal infection of the name is really long, but the name of the fungus is Pseudogymnoascus destructans, which
Wow.
um, it used to be called something different when they first found it, but in 2013 they updated it to be more reflective of um, kind of what it does and what it looks like. Um,
Mhm.
so it was found in a cave. It was identified in a cave in upstate New York in like the mid Hudson Valley region, and the cave that they found it in is connected to a cave that they use for ecotourism. So they suspect it hasn't been proven, but like logically, it most likely came from a person who tours caves, and it's likely from it's being traced back to Eastern Europe, and so somebody who was in that area visiting a cave likely picked it up, and it the spores of the fungus can live on your clothing for a long period of time, and then they came over
Mhm.
here and it just got into this cave and spread. So the way that it affects bats while they're hibernating, so it specifically affects hibernating bats that not like the ones that migrate around. And while they go into hibernation and become pretty uh, sedentary, the fungus has the ability to grow in these cold, damp environments that bats use to hibernate, and it damages their like skin tissue by decomposing it and using it as like a food source. So
Mm.
this irritates them, and like it hurts, itches. It's not the most pleasant looking thing either. It's basically like a fungus that looks like a white powder that kind of grows out of the bald spots of their fur. So mostly like in their noses and their wings. Yeah. So hence the name white nose syndrome.
Sure.
And it causes hibernating bats to wake up before they're done hibernating. So their core body temperature will start to go up and cause them to become active, and they'll burn through all of the reserves that they've collected for themselves to make it through the winter, and they'll die off. And it has like a really, really high mortality rate, and spreads throughout like the entirety of a hibernaculum. So a whole group of bats that are hibernating together. It has like between a 70 and 90% mortality rate for that group, with instances of like 100% of the whole entire colony that's hibernating together dies off. So it's been tremendously problematic.
Yeah, since it first was identified in the U.S., it's killed almost 7 million bats to date.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot, and the range of the fungus has started to expand over the years too. So it's all the way up and down the eastern seaboard and like migrating west.
It's been discovered actually in Oregon recently, and they believe it was almost certainly brought there by people as well.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the main issue with the main issue with white nose syndrome is that it's kind of a double-edged sword as far as like what to do, because the issue is that it's disturbing bats that are hibernating, and human interventions would require disturbing bats while they're hibernating. So there's been a bunch of instances of biologists trying to help and ended up not being successful because they were not able to make it through the winter, even with being treated.
Individual bats have been cured in facilities, but then when they're re-released, they've been reinfected and passed away.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So the good news about it is that the little brown bat species, one of like the most common ones, is one of the species that's been the most heavily hit. So since 2008, they've gone down by over 90% of their population, and which is not excellent, but the amount of genetic diversity that they have has kind of shown a natural selection situation occurring like in real time, kind of in overdrive. So there's a group of these bats in like by Lake Champlain on the Vermont and New York border have been being studied because they have found that they have a genetic predisposition to being able to fight off fungal infections. So this group of bats has been able to survive like successive instances of infection with white nose syndrome, and they're passing this predisposition off to their offspring. So the amount of bats that are able to kind of fight off this infection during hibernation is starting to increase. So we're seeing like in our area with white nose syndrome, in little brown bats specifically, that there was this huge sharp decline in population, and right now we're at this point where it's starting to like scoop around and go back up a little bit because of this ability for this group of bats to fight off the disease and start passing that along, which is, it highlights the importance of bat conservation, and that us as people removing the human-borne elements of threats to bat populations will help bolster these populations of bats that have the ability to fight this infection off and start to like rebound their populations. So
And
the
I mean,
work that we do now is like the most important, and like the most impactful. Like right now, what happens right now matters so much.
Yeah, and I mean, as we know, most bat species only bear one offspring a year. So this rebound is going to take a long time. But it is starting to happen. And really the best thing we can do as advocates for bats, there's some protocol that we should put into place about cave contamination. But additionally, the best thing we can do is just continue to focus our efforts on conserving bats and providing safe habitats for them, both man-made ones and preserving the natural ones that we still have.
Absolutely. Yes, that was probably the most comprehensive definition and explanation of white nose. It was so good. Thank you for that. And I love to hear that there's like a bit of positive there coming out of it. And yeah, we need our bats, that's for sure. Do you mind if I ask you some like silly questions, like what is your favorite bat species?
Oh, absolutely. These are the best questions.
Yes.
And it changes all the time as I find more and more new images of the same, because New York only has 9 different species of bats. So we're looking at a small pool of species of them. So as I encounter more and more different pictures of the same bats, I'm like, ooh, this one might be my favorite now.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be pre-batist, but it does for me cycle most between the hoary bat and the eastern red bat. I love them. And we recently were witness to an eastern red bat rescue, and it really, we actually have a video we can show you of this beautiful precious guy climbing up
awesome.
a tree trunk.
My friend called the other morning and woke me up and was like, I found a bat in like in Manhattan in like near a tree, and we were like trying to help him.
Oh my goodness.
But it turns out that he actually
he had an injury on one of his wings, so he was taken into a rehab, wildlife rehab.
So right now I'm pretty fond of that's an eastern red bat, and I feel a little attached to them because I just had an experience with them not too long ago.
That makes sense. Totally understand. I find that the bat that I've just read a really cool fact about becomes my favorite for a while, and then just like you said, it kind of changes regularly. So I'm up on the coast of Maine, and we have LL Bean here, and we had a bat talk at LL Bean pre-COVID, and there was this wonderful woman who gave a talk about leading bat walks through Central Park, and it was so fascinating. And she had recordings of some of the species she listened to on the bat detector. And I think being in rural Maine, it blew everyone's mind that like there's bats in Central Park and all over New York. So you said 9 species. You have a lot of the like big browns, little browns, like that. What are some of the other ones?
Do you want me to hit you with them all at once?
Yes.
So we have 3 tree bat species that spend their time in New York. That's the silver-haired bat, the eastern red bat, and the hoary bat. We're going to keep common names. I can give you the Latin names, but, I'll butcher them. And then we have 6 cave bat species. So we have the little browns, like we mentioned, the big browns, the northern bat, the tricolored bat, the Indiana bat, and the small-footed bat, the Myotis libri. Those are all our cave bats in New York.
That's awesome. It's very similar to what we have in Maine. I guess that makes sense. We don't have the Indiana bat, but we have the other 8. One of my other kind of silly questions, and I see a lot of your content, so maybe if you want to pull something from that, but what is one of your favorite bat facts to share with people?
What's your favorite bat fact?
I have 2 favorites. One, because I think that it's a really good like introduction to why we should care about bats, which is the that bats, like the estimated value of ecosystem services that bats have is in the tens of billions of dollars in agriculture.
In just the U.S.
And in just the United States every single year. But we're in the process of doing some of our own research and evaluation regarding rabies and some of the facts surrounding rabies, and the reason that I find it to be one of my favorites is because it falls into that category of, it's a lot of things that were said a really, really long time ago that have just like never been updated, are no longer relevant, that still are being utilized as
misinformation against bats.
Yeah, it's not necessarily relevant, or it's kind of like misleading, and it's doing a lot of damage to like the reputation of bats, and just kind of like underlying fear-based relationships that people have with them, rather than like an appropriate respect for wildlife relationship that people should have with them. And so those are like my two kind of like favorite bat facts that are
mine are much more lighthearted. Lighthearted but important. I love the strong social bonds that bats form with one another, and the complex relationships they have, and the findings about them having specific baby talk that they use with their pups really hits me right in the heart every time. And I love to talk to people about that, because they're like, what? They have these deep bonds and relationships that people can't even fathom or have never thought to consider.
And you can like, the mother bats can like hear the baby bats in like a colony of thousands. They can identify exactly which one is their baby.
Baby talk. They babble, they mimic back the sounds of bat pups.
Look, you got quite a reaction just sharing it here. That's awesome. I think that is like such a universal emotional thing we can all connect to. And I think that's so important, is to share that connection with bats. So I'm wondering, how can people get involved with your organization? How can we help?
So right now, what we are trying to do is amplify our message and amplify the importance of bats conservation globally, but particularly where we are. And we have a variety of membership options where you can be involved passively, or we have a variety of volunteer opportunities. We're in the process of putting together a long-term citizen science project to do to data collection regarding available habitat and populations of specific bats in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region. So the links to our like membership options and to our citizen science project to join it on iNaturalist are all on our website,
which is linked in our bio, but it's just gothambatcon.org.
Awesome. Well, if you all ever need bat houses for any projects you're working on, let us know. We'd be happy to participate.
That'd be great.
I love that.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you both so much for your time tonight. I really enjoyed getting to know you both and the organization. And I am going to save this onto our feed, so a lot more people will see it, and we will send them your way.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you
was
much
awesome
for having us.
Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. We'll have to do it again.
So we really appreciate you always amplifying our message and our posts. It's really awesome. So thank you.
Oh, well, your stuff is amazing, so we're happy to share it.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can do this again sometime.
We'd love to. Anytime.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Bye, Jessica. Have a good night.
Bye.